News over the weekend, all-time high in terms of Bitcoin value. Concern about the cryptocurrency because, of course, it's not regulated across the world. The Modi government in India says that they're planning to outright ban cryptocurrencies. You hear of a lot of people buying into Bitcoin. I haven't heard that many people have got their money out. What do you make of cryptocurrencies as a product?
I think people out there should be very, very careful of cryptocurrencies. You know, ultimately, this is a big gamble. What is the long-term value of Bitcoin? The answer to that question is very hard to determine. You know, at best, its only utility in our lives is as a store of value, like as an alternative to gold or as an alternative to hard currency. But here's the thing that people thinking about investing in Bitcoin need to keep in mind. It's actually not even a very good store of value. It's quite hard to transact with. It's quite expensive to create. It's not very stable in terms of the way it stores value. It goes up and down all the time. And for me, the kicker is the following thing. The amount of energy it takes to create and mine Bitcoin. This currency is created by supercomputers churning away. And last year, it took more energy to create Bitcoin in that single year of 2020 than it did to power the whole of Argentina. So if people think this currency is the future, this currency is what we're all going to be using in 10 years' time, I think they should think very carefully about that. It's not a good medium of exchange, it's highly volatile, and surely we can't be introducing a new global currency that is so energy intensive it could destroy the planet.
Terry, I want to go to the issue of electric cars. We've talked about this, you and I, many, many times, but there seems to be a bit of discrepancy. There's moves to introduce in Victoria payments, taxes per kilometre driven for electric cars so that they pay their own fair share of the road user charges because obviously they're not paying a fuel excise. But in Canberra, Trent Zimmerman, he's a moderate out of Sydney in the federal parliament, he wants electric cars to get a cut in the luxury car tax and to have lower rego to drive the uptake of electric vehicles. What do you make of this?
Well, it shows again, just to pick up again on the point that Andrew made about Bitcoin being so energy intensive. Well, clearly, if we all move to the same, something similar applies to electric cars. If we all move to electric cars, we're swapping one form of energy, petrol, for electricity, and we'll need to think very, very carefully about how we're going to supply that electricity because you clearly can't hook those electric cars or solar panels. So there's so many. There is no free lunch at the end of the day. If we move to an all-electric fleet and we no longer get the fuel excise, we're certainly going to have to raise the taxes from some other process, which is a tax on electric cars. So you could play games at the edges like transit.
Andrew, there's all these issues.
Alternative.
Yes, I lost your line there at the end there, Terry. Sorry to interrupt you. But Andrew, I'll go to you just on the point about the geography always gets Australia in terms of the electric car take-up argument because obviously the distances to put charging stations are a very different proposition compared to Europe, but of course even the United States, which has got a populated interior, unlike Australia. I mean, all this talk that there'll be no combustion engines in sort of 10 years' time, is that realistic?
Well, I mean, the first thing I'd say is, there must be lots of viewers out there shaking their head at the proposal to remove or reduce the tax on luxury cars. If we were going to be proposing to cut state taxes, the luxury car tax surely would be a long way down the list. Think of all the small business people who are struggling under payroll tax. Think of the whopping stamp duties that first home buyers are paying when they try and purchase their first family home. The luxury car tax would be way down the list. It is true that we need to think about how we are going to pay for our road network after fuel excise ramps down. I do think that electric vehicles will become an increasingly large proportion of the total vehicle fleet. Terry is right that we're going to need to think very hard about how we produce the energy to support that. We can't just be whacking those straight on the grid. But I think as part of the energy transition that we go through over the next 2 years, we have to accept that electric vehicles are going to be a big part of that. There'll be problems to solve. Interstate transport, as you correctly point out, will be one of those problems. But the bigger issues are how will we fund the road network after fuel excise is so much smaller because that many fewer people are buying fuel, and how will we power this new energy grid that will be required to support these vehicles? Those are big challenges.
Right. And let's throw nuclear in the mix, because if we want to have electric cars and reduce emissions, just running them off our grid doesn't work like Europe, which has nuclear in the mix. Andrew Charlton, as always, thank you for your time. Terry McCrann, you too.